Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on our lovely presentation where we're going to be going over Social Security, one of my favorite topics. Uh, just a couple of housekeeping items. You'll see on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little hand that represents raise hand. So if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to just raise your hand. I'm happy to stop. And if you don't want to ask during the presentation, of course, I'll leave some time at the end to ask as many questions as you may have. For those who don't know me and are joining us on the call tonight, my name is Michael Petraka, and I am the owner and operator of HJB Financial Group. And so for tonight's presentation, I'm going to really be focusing on two things. One, I want to make sure everyone has a solid understanding of the 101s when it comes to Social Securities. And then once we got the 101s in place, now I want you to start thinking about it in your own personal situation. What might make the most sense for you? So I discuss the possible strategies, a couple things to kind of think about, and I list out what I consider the 5 or 6 most important things as I sit down to make the decision. So, what happens a lot is I'll be sitting down with someone and they'll say, "Hey, Mike, should I turn it on at this age?" Fantastic question, but it's not something that it's a catch-all. Everyone should do the same thing. You know, Depending on your family, your life expectancy, your health, your assets, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I like to think about, kind of analyze, and based on all of those things together, we come up with maybe a range of ages that make the most sense. Because at the end of the day, what I always tell people is, you tell me when you're going to pass away, and I will tell you the exact right thing to do. So, of course, we don't have that piece of the information. So we do things that kind of make the most sense based on your finances. All right, fantastic. Let's get the presentation started. So a little bit of history when it comes to the Social Security world. What we're looking at right here is Miss Ida Mae Fuller. Ida is the original. She is the very first recipient of Social Security. So she also might have the single greatest investment in the history of the world, maybe besides some lottery pickers. But Ida Mae literally put one payment into the Social Security system and then started her Social Security world, getting 2254 for the rest of her life, adjusting for inflation. So not a bad return on investment. What's the other incredible thing about Ida is at the time that she received it, life expectancy was 60 years old. Now, Social Security didn't kick in until 65. So most people already passed away for 5 years when they were entitled to Social Security. Of course, very first one, Ida lasted till 100 years old. For her, what probably was maybe $1 she put into the system, she got a fantastic return on investment for the rest of her life. So again, let's start with the basics. So who is eligible for Social Security? So you need 40 quarters, and you can get 4 quarters in a particular year. So that means more or less you have to work for about 10 years, and then you are eligible for your retirement Social Security benefit. Retirement Social Security is different from disability when it comes to Social Security. So tonight we're really just focusing on the retirement end. So again, if we put in get 40 quarters or 10 years worth of work, we now are eligible for a Social Security benefit. Now, like anything else, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you're going to get a great benefit. Obviously, the more you put in for longer periods of time, your benefit would increase. Now, to piggyback off that point, Social Security is utilizing your highest 35 years. Now, that one normally catches people by surprise. A lot of pensions might use your last 5 or highest 5 years or highest 3 years. Social Security is using your highest 35 years. So if you go back to your high school days and you're trying to get a good grade in the class and you're doing all your homework assignments and you're getting B's and A's, and then you forgot 2 assignments and you got zeros, those zeros really drag down your average. So every year that you're replacing a 0 with a number, you're probably helping yourselves a lot when it comes to your eventual Social Security benefit. Now, something that also comes up all the time is, "Hey, Mike, Social Security is not going to be there. It's bankrupt. I don't really count on it." Now, by no means can I sit here with any degree of certainty and tell you exactly how it's going to play out. As we sit here today, Social Security has a Social Security trust fund. Now, that pool of money, plus what people are putting in as part of their FICA, everyone's working, is putting a little bit towards Social Security. This pool of money is supposed to run dry around 2034, at which point we have about 78 cents on the dollar, meaning that for people putting into the system than people coming out, we have enough for about 78 cents on the dollar. That is not an ideal situation. Now, no one knows exactly what's going to happen. Now, something to keep in mind, this is not the first time the Social Security Trust Fund has run into trouble. Everyone used to have a retirement age of 65. Now it's staggered. Every single year they increase the dollar amount that's taxable to Social Security. So there are little things they can do. So for example, in your FICA taxes, roughly, I believe it's 6.2% goes towards Social Security. They could increase that to 6.4. So all these little things can help kind of keep it going. Now, my own personal belief is, yeah, Social Security is going to be a problem, especially with the amount of baby boomers going to be on claim versus Generation X, the generation right before it, being a smaller generation. Eventually, whether it's 2034, at some point, there is going to be a problem. Now, in saying that, I believe touching Social Security or really any of the benefits seems to be what we would consider political suicide. So there's not too many politicians willing to touch it. Now, what they can do and what I believe will happen is, yes, you will get it, but where maybe at some point it represented 30-40% of your budget, they're not going to keep up with true inflation. So yeah, you're going to get it, but what used to be able to pay 30% of your bills, eventually is going to be 20% of your bills, maybe 15% of your bills. So yes, I believe it'll be there, but I wouldn't, it's not going to be as big as a factor as it was maybe for the last 30, 40, 50 years. That's just my own personal take. Now, when can you claim your Social Security benefits? Well, the main age, or the age what your full retirement age, is now a sliding scale. Like I said, it used to be everyone at 65 reached their full retirement age. That is the first year you could touch your benefits without a penalty or a reduction. Now it's staggered a little bit. So for the people born between 1943 and 1954, it's 66. And for people after 1954, they start to slowly get up to 67. And then anyone 1960s or older, in terms of age when they were born, you're a 67. Now, at your full retirement age, you're entitled to your primary insurance amount. So that is the calculation they use to determine how much money they're going to give you on a monthly basis. So that is one, based on your earnings. Like I mentioned before, you need 40 quarters, but that could be a quarter where you earn $1,500 or $15,000. So every dollar amount kind of counts. So I apologize, not every dollar amount, up to 168,600. That is the amount that is taxable to Social Security. So that number is adjusted for inflation throughout time. So if you've always been a high earner, you're going to get one of the higher Social Security benefits. So it's one, your earnings, two, your years worked. Remember, it's your 35 highest years. And then three, a smaller factor, your age, whether your full retirement age is 65, 66, or 67. So that formula comes up with your primary insurance amount. Now, you are also eligible or entitled to take benefits anywhere between 62 and 70 years old. Now, every year you delay, Social Security is going to give you a little bit of a raise. So between 62 and say your full retirement age in this example is 66, it's roughly about a 7% increase. And then from 66 to 70, it's an 8% increase. That's not nothing. There are no 8% CDs out there. So where it might be a perfectly good and logical reason to take your benefits at 63 or 65, that type of raise, you just want to make sure you're really making an educated decision on what makes the most sense. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say I could turn on Social Security or utilize money in a bank account that's earning zero. Well, it kind of doesn't make too much sense to take something that's going to earn you 7-8% to leave that's a pool of money earning zero. So again, one of the things is kind of where your assets are and what type of rate of return you're getting on them, should help you make that decision. Obviously, that means if it's higher, but you're going to get it for less years because you delayed taking it, there's going to be a break-even point. So as we sit here, conceptually, it's between 78 and 82 years old. So, just to kind of take a point in the middle for arguments of this conversation, let's say from 80 on, it was going to make sense for you to have delayed it. Now, going back to what I originally said, you tell me when you're going to pass away, I'll tell you exactly the right thing to do. But as a financial planner, my job is to understand risk. If God forbid you pass away early in your retirement, you do not have any money problem. If you're 92 and broke, we have a very big problem. So I do not do recommendations based on making sure I beat Social Security. I need you to get through retirement with dignity, with being able to sustain a lifestyle for 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. So I have to plan for longevity. Now, if there's some things in your health or your medical history or something like that, of course that's a factor. But, just to put some rough numbers behind it, but, conceptually, right around 80s where they all kind of converge. And then at that point, it made more sense delaying taking your Social Security. Now, one of the factors is people in general are living longer. So this slide is a quick example of that, showing you in 1960, your average male was 66 when he passed away, and now it's 84 years old. Now, this is assuming you've reached 65 years old. So when I do financial plans, I like to factor in at least your mid 90s in terms of how long we want to plan a retirement for. I am sure if we flash forward 10, 15 years from now, life expectancy is going to be somewhere in the 90s. With modern medicine where it is, the trend continues to go up. Now, this is probably my favorite slide. So this is telling you what your peers are doing. So statistically, it's about a third of the individuals are taking it between 62 and 64, roughly half in the middle of Social Security, and then a very small percentage at 70. So what I get all the time is people come in and say, well, my cousin's doing this, or Sue from the office is doing this, and she's great with money. Please, that is not a verified source in terms of what you should be making your decision based on. I highly recommend, before I would be saying, sit down with a CPA or a CFP. Sadly, I knew too many CPAs, and I don't really like the answers they give. They're too quick to give what's off the top of their head. When I give someone advice when it comes to their Social Security, it's at least a 20-minute conversation of me understanding a lot of what's going on in their life to kind of help them make that decision. But please just, no one else is living your retirement. So what Sue or Bob in the office is doing, it really has nothing to do with you. You don't know their finances and they don't know yours. So again, please just make an educated decision behind whatever you're going to do when it comes to Social Security. Now, let's say, nope, Mike, I've heard enough. I am turning on Social Security earlier and I'm going to bank it. So I'm going to continue to work full time and I'm going to collect my Social Security at 62. Well, the Social Security office has thought of that. So if you're trying to turn on your Social Security early, so let's say you're 62 years old and you want to continue to work. Well, they put a system in place that for every $2 over 21,240, they're going to withhold $1 out of your Social Security. So let's give a quick example. Let's say we made 31,240, so exactly 10,000 over. So out of the 10,000 Social Security benefits you were going to get, they're going to keep 5,000. So the whole point of turning on Social Security early was for you to kind of double dip, work and collect it. They're going to withhold it from you. So not only are you not getting it, but now you've locked in a reduced rate of up to 20, 30, maybe 35% for the rest of your life. So there's not too many like absolutes when it comes to Social Security. One of them I would say is if you're still working full time, it's really hard to pull off taking your Social Security and continuing to work. Now, in the year you reach your full retirement age, this one's a little tricky, so I'm going to go through an example. They loosen up the rules a little bit. So instead of the first 21,000, it's 56,000 to 520. And instead of for every 2, it's 1. Now it's for every 3, it's 1. Now, what you might think is, let's say your full retirement age is 66 years old. Oh, as long as I'm within 1 year of my birthday, this rule applies. That is not what they're saying. So I'm a February birthday. So let's say I turn 66 this coming February. So I'm thinking a whole year back. No, it's the year that you reach your full retirement age. So in my particular situation, I'm kind of screwed because I was born in the first half of the year. So I can only enjoy this 56,520 kind of rule from January 1st to my birthday on February 9th. So if you were born in December, you get to enjoy the majority of this reality. If you were born in January, February, you're getting almost none of that reality. So I just want to make sure you don't think it's kind of 1 year back from your birthday. Now, after you reach your full retirement age, that's when you can make as much money as you want. Then they're not going to withhold anything. Now, whatever dollar amounts they do withhold from you, they don't keep it, but they just give it to you in little chunks throughout your life expectancy. Again, kind of defeats the purpose of turning on your benefits early. Now, one of the special rules that I want people to factor in is, Social Security office is going to think of things on an annual basis, but you can tell them, hey, I retired halfway through this year, so I want to do this calculation on a monthly basis from my retirement going forward. I don't want you to factor in my salary of when I was still working. So you can call them, but you have to instruct them that this did play out. So what we were just talking about was when they withhold money before you reach your full retirement age. Now, all right, you've gotten it, and now they're going to tax it. So here is kind of the tax situations. So let's just go through one of the situations. So we'll do a married filing joint. So the first 32,000 of income, and we're going to define what exactly that income is. The Social Security is coming to you free and clear. If your income is falling between 32 and 44,000, up to 50% of your Social Security benefit will be taxable, and anything over 44,000, up to 85% of your benefit is taxable. So what do I mean by up to 85%? Just to use a nice round number, let's say we fall on ourselves in the 85% taxable situation, and let's say our Social Security benefit was 10 grand. 85% of the 10 grand, or $8,500, is being added on to your taxable income. So what I'm not saying is you got Social Security of 10 grand and they're going to keep $8,500 or 85% of that as the tax. No. 8,500 got added onto your taxable income. Let's say your tax bracket is roughly 25%. So a quarter of that, roughly 2,000 and change, would be the tax on the 10,000 you receive. Now, how do they come up with their income figures? It's what's called their modified adjusted gross income. So they're adding a few things back into this equation. So what we have here is half of your Social Security benefit plus your modified adjusted gross income is how you calculate the income they're going to utilize to determine if it's going to be taxable to you or not. So here's a list of all the things that gets factored in as income. So something that wouldn't be considered an income in other situations would be income from muni bonds. So tax-free for income tax purposes, but factored in as possible ways of getting taxable your Social Security benefits. Spousal benefits is very important. So when you're trying to figure out what you should be doing when it comes to Social Security, just know this is not an I decision if you are married. This is going to have ramifications for the two of you. So you should be, I'm not telling you to turn on your Social Security benefits at the same time, but the planning around it, you should be factoring in both. So what the Social Security spousal benefit is, and let's say, for example, you're married and one spouse worked and the other one didn't, so they weren't able to put into 40 quarters and they're not eligible for a retirement benefit, they can get a Social Security retirement benefit by getting their spousal benefit. So let's say person one, their Social Security benefit was $2,000. Well, once the spouse reaches their full retirement age, they're eligible for 50% of that amount, or $1,000, throughout their retirement. Now, one thing that's a little special rules when it comes to the spousal benefits. So let's say you did work a little bit, so you have your own benefit, and you also could get a spousal benefit. Some people think, oh, I'm going to turn on my spousal benefit at 62, and then I'll switch over to mine later in life. You cannot do that. Once you elect your spouse, they are going to send you the higher of the two, your benefit or the spousal. It is not something where you can switch back and forth. The other important factor about the spousal benefit, it doesn't continue to grow after your full retirement age. So let's say your spousal benefit or your full retirement age is 66, and you thought, oh, it's going to continue to grow at the 8%. A spousal benefit does not continue to grow. So this is a situation, maybe person one, let's say the primary breadwinner was like, oh, I'm going to wait till 70. But the person can't collect their spousal benefit unless the other person turned on theirs. So yeah, waiting to 70 allowed yours to continue to grow, but you also didn't get yours, and then your spouse couldn't get theirs. And so that, those situations, it might make more sense to turn it on early. Again, the main factor I want you to think is make the decision together what makes the most sense in terms of planning. Now, on this slide, it's again just piggybacking with what I just said. I don't really go into the example, but I just want you to kind of think long term. So a general rule of thumb that for the most part, I would say 99% of the time is the right thing, is let's say you have two people, a husband and a wife, or a couple, one's higher and one's lower. Typically, the person with the higher benefit, you want to delay taking it. The reason for that is what's called the widower benefit or the survivor benefit here. So let's play out a scenario where the person with the higher benefit turned theirs on early. So they've reduced it for the rest of their life. And let's say the spouse didn't work. So they're only going to get half of that benefit. And then later in life, person one passed away, the widower benefit gets to drop theirs and take the higher of the two. So if the primary breadwinner delays taking theirs, not only are they going to increase theirs for the rest of their life, but they're also going to increase what the widower is going to get for the rest of their life. So again, I go back to you want to plan based on both of you and what makes the most sense as a team. Survivor benefits or widower benefits do have an extra rule. So where I mentioned before, a spouse can't flip-flop between their benefit and the spousal benefit, a widower can. So, and widower can also turn it on as early as 60 years old. So it's a situation, person A passes away, person B is entitled to a widow benefit. They take their widow benefit at 60 years old. They continue to let theirs grow at either the 7 or 8% growth rate, and then they get flip and take their benefit at 70 years old. That is a strategy that, it's an unfortunate situation, but financially, if done right, can really kind of help someone in that situation. Now, something that every once in a while comes up is if you are divorced and someone is entitled to a benefit based on your Social Security benefit, really the only thing you should know is it doesn't impact you whatsoever. They just utilize it for the calculation. But, the famous example is Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was married 3 different times for over 10 years. So 3 different women were entitled to benefits off of his. It doesn't impact his numbers any which way. Again, they just use it to come up with the calculation. Another thing to consider is, situations when to turn it on earlier. Let's say you had kids later in life. So let's say you're 63 and you're thinking, I'm going to wait to turn on benefits. Well, maybe if you have 2 or 3 kids that are under 18 years old who would be able to get a Social Security benefit off of you, they're not entitled to take theirs unless you've turned on yours. So that might be a factor to turning it on a little bit earlier. So that kind of summarizes the 101s of Social Security. Now I'm getting to the part of the conversation where I give you all the things that I consider and factor in every time I give someone advice on when to take Social Security. So first and foremost is your health. So obviously, if longevity is not in the cards and you're dealing with some health issues, so you got a high probability of passing away in your 70s, yeah, that's obviously going to be a tremendous factor on when you turn Social Security. So again, going back to what I said before, if you were the higher of the two, although you might get less benefit, you might want to hold off for the widower benefit. Again, something to consider. Two, your family history. If you're sitting there and your grandma lasted to 95 and her mom lasted to 95, yeah, I certainly want to factor that into the equation. Three, well, what are going on in the markets? And I gave you the example a little earlier in the presentation. If your money, because you're really, really conservative, over time is only going to earn 2-3%, and we have Social Security growing at 7-8%, you might want to lean towards leaving it alone and touching the thing that's growing at a lower rate. Now, at the flip side, let's say stocks are at all-time highs at very expensive levels. I would say, hey, it's a good time to take some profits. Let that guaranteed growth rate continue to lock in. Now, the reverse, let's say it's the 2008 financial crisis all over again. Stocks are down 50%. So the way I would like to put it is they're on sale 50%. You have a potential huge upside as the market eventually turns. Yeah, maybe that 8% no longer looks that good because stocks over that period of time kind of give you double-digit rates of returns. So where the markets are when you're thinking about turning it on is a factor. Risk tolerance is another one as well. So going back to, if you're the type, hey, I just like the money sitting in a checking account. I don't care if it earns 0. I just like the safety. All right, well, that should be a factor. At the same time, if you are very comfortable with stocks and, in a high likelihood gets a little bit better rate of return, now you're comparing either maybe a 0.12% or a 7-8% versus the guaranteed growth rates of Social Security. Like we were just going over before, what your spouse is going to get, not only as a spousal benefit, but eventually a widower benefit, is a very, very big factor. And again, a lot of times I'm giving the basic advice. All right, I understand we want to turn something on to kind of hedge our bet. All right, the lower of the two, let's turn it on. The higher of the two, let's try and delay. I'm not saying delay to 70, 68, 69, 66, kind of to the tail half. Now, something I didn't bring up before, it's not a cliff. So it's not 66 or 67. Every single month you delay, you're giving yourself a little bit more of a raise. So I just don't want you to think it was like all or nothing year in, year out. Now, your retirement assets. So if you are a little bit low in terms of your retirement pool, so your budget returns can be kind of tight, and I'm sitting here a little bit nervous that you might run out of money based on your assets and your kind of income needs, then it kind of makes more sense to kind of delay. There's a humongous kind of, I would say, a tripling effect to every year you delay. So typically people might correlate your Social Security turning it on with retirement. So every year you push off, there's 3 or 4 little triggers. So, all right, I'm going to push off Social Security. That means I'm going to continue to work. Maybe you're making an extra salary of 80 grand. So you're 80 grand to the plus because you didn't take Social Security. You made that salary. You were putting money into your 401k. You weren't taking money out of your investments. And now you have to worry about one less year of a retirement. It is a very big amplifying effect 1 year, one way or another. Don't get me wrong. It surprised me as I was running cash flows and financial plans, just saying, all right, if you turn it on and retire at 66, you can live on a budget of 90K. If you wait 1 more year, you can give yourself an extra $800 a month for the rest of your life. And there's no right or wrong answer there. Do what makes you happy. Do what kind of speaks to you. But just don't be shocked at how much of a difference it could be just kind of 1 year up or down. And that's what I was just kind of going through with the cash flow projections. And so what I've just said to you is just concepts. Concepts are important. What you want to do is make it real for you. Put the numbers behind it. So what I offer everyone is just a Social Security analysis. So we plug in the numbers to see what the differences are. So we can kind of play with, you see on the right side of the screen, all right, let's play some assumptions when we're having spousal benefits or when we're turning on our own benefits. And you can see on the bottom here, all right, let's say the wife lasts till 95 and the husband passed away at 90. And then we can compare, well, what do the numbers look like if we both turn on at 62? Or both at our full retirement age, or 70, or maybe there's some hybrid approach that we can turn on one early, one late. And what we're trying to see is compare is like, well, how much money are we really leaving on the table? So you can kind of see here at 62 on the very bottom, you're getting close to about 1.1. Now, if you both collected at 70, it's a little over 1.4. That's like a $300,000 difference. That's not nothing. Especially if we can come up with some hybrid approach where, yeah, we could get to turn on some a little bit money early, and maybe we delay someone taking a little bit late, kind of hedge our bet. Maybe we can get pretty close to kind of that max benefit. But again, the point here is just to know your numbers. It shouldn't be based on, well, if Sue in the office is doing it, then I'm going to do it. No, let's run the numbers based on your own situation. Now, these numbers are just your Social Security numbers. What I highly recommend you do, and what I tend to do for all of my clients, is, especially as you approach retirement, is we want to see it in a cash flow. We say, all right, we've made the decision, we're going to turn on our benefits. So here's our Social Security benefits here, and we turned it on at 67. Maybe we're working for a little bit longer. Well, how does that look? So if we have our income flows here, and we run it into a cash flow, and let's just go through a quick example so I can explain to you what you're looking at. Let's look at the year 2028. So we have a situation where we're kind of both retired, and we got 49,000 coming in. This is kind of just Social Security. And we started our required distributions from our investments, this 33,000. So we've got 82,000 coming in. And let's say our lifestyle gross, we're trying to spend about 166,000. So we're taking some money out of our investments, and we're trying to say, all right, is this sustainable? Am I going to run out of money? So we have this $2 million left here, and we say, all right, well, what does it look like over time? And we have a situation where, oh crap, we ran dry. A lot of people, in this example, we have a client who's 93 and their spouse is 84. I don't have to plan for 25 to 30-year retirement. I have to plan a 35 to 40-year retirement. So, running out of money at the older of the couple at 94, yeah, it sounds reasonable. But the other spouse is only 84, 85 years old, and we've run out of money. So the most important thing we need to do, and when it comes to Social Security, is, yeah, I'm going to take my Social Security, but that also means when I'm going to retire. And it's also going to kind of tell me what the budget is. Can I plug in the numbers? Am I going to be okay? So this is why when people ask me, should I take it at 62? I go back to the slide before, the 6, 7 things I think about. I run the numbers and I see cash flow. Are we in a good spot? This is what I mean when I say you need to make an educated decision of when it comes to Social Security. Without knowing the future, we can't be sure exactly what is the right thing, but knowing that your Social Security decision typically is highly correlated with retirement date, it is arguably the biggest decision you're going to make, because you don't get a do-over when it comes to retirement. So picking your retirement date, picking that budget, picking when you're turning on your Social Security, and making sure based on that lifestyle and the assets you have, you're going to be fine. This is what retirement planning is all about. Now, if you're in a situation where, yeah, you have more than enough assets and you're going to leave a nice inheritance to someone, then you have more flexibility. Then I'm not going to be so pushy. Then I'm going to say, you're leaving 600,000, 700,000 behind. Do what speaks to you. Maybe I wouldn't turn it on 62, 63. But if you really want to do it 65, 66, have fun. Because there's less ramifications, because we have enough assets to kind of get us through a rough patch if life doesn't exactly go perfectly for us. But, again, these are the things I think about. It's a very important subject. I am always here if someone wants to sit down and run your numbers to see what makes the most sense for you. Tomorrow, everyone's going to get a survey, and one of the questions on the survey is if you want to set up a one-on-one meeting. Happy to sit down. I don't charge anyone anything for this. So if you want to sit down, run your numbers, see what makes the most sense for you, happy to do it. I really kind of enjoy it because it's a fun little Rubik's Cube of thinking about all the different angles and figure out what makes the most sense for you. So I want to thank everyone for participating tonight. I am always here if you have any questions. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email.